We're going to do an electronic music demonstration for you guys today, but first we want to talk a little bit about what is music? Why do we like music? How does it affect our minds? What is the psychology of music? My students in cognitive psychology have been spending the semester researching the effects of music on behavior and on our minds. So we're going to see some of those slides that the students made up here on the screen. And first, let's introduce our world-renowned philosophy professor and musician. Here he is, Dr. Darrell Arnold.
That's drum to follow, but I'm going to try, and I think you can all help me because I'm going to sing, and you're going to sing with me. Okay? This is real easy, so if you listen, you'll get it. Jesus on the main line, tell him what you want. Jesus on the main line, tell him what you want. Jesus on the main line, tell him what you want. You just call him up and tell him what you want. Well, if you're sick and you want to get well, tell him what you want. If you're sick and you want to get well, tell him what you want. If you're sick and you want to get well, tell him what you want. You just call him up, tell him what you want. If you need some love, tell him what you want. If you need some love, tell him what you want. If you need some love, tell him what you want. You just call him up and tell him what you want. Well, you don't sound like an African-American congregation in Miami Gardens, I don't think. But this is one of the things music does. Yeah? We saw it a little bit with what Jeff was doing. I'm going to talk to you about what music is and a little bit about what music's purpose is and things like that. I have some slides I'll put up here to guide us as we go through this. And we're going to come back to what I just did and use that for some reflection as we go ahead here. But can somebody offer me, first of all, a definition of what music is? What is music? That's what I'm really looking at. I'm exploring the philosophy of music. What is it?
Sounds and rhythm.
Ah, so we've got a couple of the main characteristics, sounds and rhythm. Anybody hear that out there?
That's
That sound, it's got a kind of a pulse. Is that music?
No, definitely not.
Okay. It's a little tricky. That's the long guy, and he's getting on my nerves. But it's actually a kind of fuzzy question. One of the standard definitions for music is that it's organized sound. Yet, in fact, we might think that this guy has something like organized sound. There are other definitions of music that are thrown about. We're going to not explore them all in detail, but I'm going to acquaint you a little bit with what some of these are as we kind of think about what music is and relate it to what music does. So, one classical understanding of music is that it's a language of the emotions. So maybe it's organized sound, if we were to follow that would move us in some way emotionally, expressing happiness or grief or some things like that. That would not probably include that, even though it might excite us to be a little bit tense and annoyed and so on. And not exactly music of the emotions or language of the emotions. Another definition is it's whatever you can get people to accept as music. So if you could get it staged in a concert hall and get people to buy tickets for it, there you go. It's music. This isn't an exhaustive list of what music is. There we have also some sound. It's coming out kind of rhythmically. And there's a rhythmic character to it. But we're going to look at some of these characteristics You did an excellent job, and rhythm is one of them. There's a temporal sequence, there's often harmony in music, there's melody, and there's a kind of a unity and a continuity to a musical piece. Those are some of the characteristics. Now, in the modern world, we've learned to notate music. Anybody tell me anything? What strikes you about this? Of those characteristics that we were looking at, which of those characteristics is being expressed in this musical score? You've got rhythm, right? So these notes are telling you that's a quarter note. So you hold it depending on the tact or the beats per minute of the song, a particular amount of time. It's telling you how fast to play it in relationship to those other notes. Now this is a very, very simplified score, so it doesn't give you enough information really. What else do we see? So, pitch, right? These are notes on a scale, so it tells you what tone it is supposed to have. So we're already looking at melody, and we're looking at rhythm in some sense, right? Anything else? What about this particular?
It's got words, like lyrics.
This is a song that you sing, right? So I brought the most ancient instrument that humans have with me today, which is my voice. And Dr. Pickens brought something a little more modern than that. But a lot of music that we hear, especially in pop culture, is music that you sing. So who wants to sing this song? Lots of people just waiting to be discovered. There's no agent in the back, so this is not real TV. Okay, hush. We got Jeff's doing his best here. What do we have here? Hush Little Baby. What kind of a song is this? It's a lullaby. What's it used for? Putting kids to sleep. It's actually one of the... How long do you think people have been doing that? This kid's crying. You think, what am I going to do? How am I going to calm this child down? How long do you think people have been doing that? Since there were kids, you think? This is one of the questions about the origin of music. Is it as old as language itself? Does it predate language? Somehow musicality? We don't have really conclusive answers to those questions. We have a historian here who could talk about the difficulty of having some kind of final historical say about that kind of a question. But this is certainly one of the purposes of music. Very, very primordial. Music soothes people. Music calms people. And so I'm dovetailing into two different things here. We have rhythm, which has these characteristics. That's what we're talking about. Tone, rhythm, and so on. And we have now one of the purposes of music that we've shown. We've talked about a couple different things, innovations with instruments. So all of that is at play here. I'm going to talk about the question of what is music in relationship to this Catholic University. I can hardly get by without doing this. Aristotle, okay? The great ancient philosopher Aristotle. He said some pretty important things for helping us understand the character of a lot of things, right? He said if you really want to know what something is, you ask yourself these questions. What's it made of? What's the structure of it? What's it for? And what brings it into existence, right? So it's kind of enlightening many times to think about those things when describing objects. And so we're looking at an object, music as an object. Music is an odd object. How is music different than a chair, for example? I mean, here's a chair, and there it is. Where's the music? We had it a minute ago. Where'd it go? Chair's here. What is it about music that's different than the chair? It's a kind of object. It exists physically somehow, but how's it different from a chair?
It's not physical.
It kind of is physical, though, right? It's a tone. A tone is a physical reality. It's a sound wave. You can't see the sound wave, but it is a wave. It's a physical thing, but you can't see it. There's something about it that's different. Philosophers, going back a long time, characterize that music is temporal in its character. So we experience a music piece in a sequence of time, always remembering the notes that have slipped away into the past. We know the song, we can anticipate the further notes, but it exists in time. It also exists in space. You have to be in an area where that sound wave is, but it's a temporal kind of object, more, we would say, than a spatial kind of object, even though it, of course, exists in space, since it is dealing with physical realities, the things that you don't see, but you hear, okay? Well, I'm going to talk about what it's made of. There you go. Sound waves, right? What's its structure? We already had some of that. You were really, really great at that, Michael. So, what's the structure?
Sound and rhythm.
There you go. Rhythm, temporal, rhythmic, harmonic, melodic. Somehow those tones shaped into a particular kind of form. And I'm emphasizing it's temporal, so it's in time, right? What's it for? Well, sorry about that. Hold on. What's it for? We already had one demonstration. Getting those kids to quiet down. Just give me a little piece. For child rearing, right? Quieting things. What are some other purposes of music? Let's think about, we want to understand what music is. We know it's these kinds of waves that we don't see, we experience in time, structured a certain way. What's it for? What's it do?
Entertainment.
It entertains us. Yeah. What do you listen to music for? Running? Okay, yeah, it can motivate you. I mean, it can make you run faster. You're listening to the right kind of music. It can give you the extra boost to go further. What else do you use music for in your everyday lives? Going to classes. Oh, to just kind of amuse yourself between class. Try to forget about the last miserable experience you just got out of. Or whatever it is. But what else?
Motivation.
Yeah.
Company, therapy.
Therapy. I mean, I think we're going to be hearing about this from Dr. Pickens and his students. There are all sorts of therapeutic uses. Anything else?
Study.
Huh?
Study.
Study?
Studying.
Okay, some people concentrate better with it on.
Motivation.
Motivation. I started with a particular kind of song. What was that for? What happens when you sing a song in an enthusiastic church?
You have a call and response.
Okay, well, there's a call and response. That's that kind of song.
I was gonna mention also like tribal, like in African cultures, you know, like music is what brings the village or clan together.
Right. So it does this. It brings people together. It creates social solidarity. You create. Anybody know from the peace movements of the 1960s? What did you have out there at all of those protests?
Protest songs.
The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. Right. Yeah. So you've got people coming together, identifying with a particular movement, identifying with particular justice issues. You've got people of a particular identity. Am I going to go into the Jewish congregation and sing Jesus on the main line? Am I going to go into a synagogue and do that? Probably not. So it unites people who have a particular kind of ideology and so on. Unites people in beliefs, and it unites them in a kind of action. It creates a kind of solidarity. It's a kind of a ritual thing. We don't have too many sing-along events anymore. Music used to be so communal. You would have music where you had a musician. Now you have music where there's no musician. You get a radio. Radios are old-fashioned. Nobody has radios. Everybody's got a cell phone, right? You got music on your cell phone. And there's no musician there anymore. You're listening to it by yourself. You're not listening to it in a community where you would have always, earlier in history, have listened to music with other people as a communal group experience. Maybe you would have sung together. Maybe you would have celebrated your common understanding of reality or the gods or something like that. What about music? I sang you a particular kind of song. What is it?
Spiritual.
A spiritual, right? So that's meant to facilitate some kind of not only togetherness, but maybe some kind of transcendent experience or something like this. I almost started with this one. I'll do it now. Okay. Much more suitable for the kind of institution we're in. Hold on. So I always do this before. that song isn't meant for you or your glory or something like that. With that song, I meant to be making a joke. You're trying to give glory to God with that song, right? You don't have your lector at church say, hey, how'd I do today? Normally, right? You're using that to facilitate some experience of the transcendent or something along those lines. Well, I'm getting probably behind schedule here. So it expresses emotion. There's other things we think of it for. I wanted to grab the picture of Steve Tyler. Do you know who Steve Tyler is? Big lips. Aerosmith. When you think of Steve Tyler 20 years ago, what do you think of? Rodate. Not so much. You think of sex appeal. Sex appeal, right? Steve Tyler. If you're, so sex appeal, right? Sexual selection. A lot of art is thought to be for sexual selection. Expression of emotion. We have a different kind of song for a funeral than we have to work together on the chain gang, or than we have in the church, expressing different kinds of emotions. And there are many more things besides that. What about this question? Are humans the only ones to make music? Maybe not? I don't know. What else? So I had a little song about a mockingbird, right? So you have a mockingbird that certainly has what's called a bird song. What's the mockingbird's bird song for? Y'all hear those other little mockingbirds? Wow, that was amazing. Not exactly, right? So what are they doing? What are they doing? What are mockingbirds doing? They're looking for love. It's a mating call. This could be a warning call. I don't really know that much about birdsong, but there are some of those things going on. So there we have, I don't know, very pretty bird singing something that is perhaps quite attractive to another pretty bird. Okay? So there are disputes over the purpose of music. I would want to say there's not one purpose of music. These disputes about the purpose of music or the purposes of music have to. That's very nice. Doesn't that just relax you if you just listen to that? Now, when we use music like a bird song like that, it could be having this effect on us that music has, which is begin to relax us, get us to mellow out, not be so uptight, and so on, right? Even a bird song. Disputes over the purposes of music. You notice my tone and my voice changed. Thank you. So frazzled. I just taught 3 classes and I ran over here to do this. So we have this effect of music on our emotions that's enormous, right? But what are other purposes? We mentioned a couple. The song I started with? Spiritual purposes, right? Sexual selection, right? That's why you have all those rock stars with all those girlfriends and all those rock star women with all those boyfriends and all that kind of stuff. Other things? Anything we haven't mentioned yet?
Romance?
Huh?
Romance.
Romance. Well, yeah, there you go. That's tied into that. Facilitate social coordination. I mentioned chain gangs. You have a bunch of these spirituals and so on that were meant as work songs. They're meant to, or people, these existed in England for people working on the barges together. And they learned these shanties to facilitate actually working in unison, right? All those songs about the chain gangs and so on facilitated slugging that hammer down at the same time in rhythm with each other, right? Rhythm is musical, music organized in rhythmic tones. It facilitates work sometimes. Bodily coordination. I think we're going to hear from Dr. Pickens about some of that and the effects in medicine and so on, I'm imagining. So, and we talked about child rearing, the lullabies, and all of those kinds of things. So, I agree with Tolstoy, what Tolstoy says about music, art applying to music. I think we've been doing this kind of thing. as we've been talking, right? Or we've been singing songs and having lullabies. All I have is a hunch. I don't have the historical evidence. But it's one of the main theories about the origin of music is that it's contemporaneous with the origin of language, maybe even facilitated the origin of language. And here's what Tolstoy says of art as an expression of emotion, because what we're doing is we're expressing something, not expressing exactly what we express with words, but we're expressing emotion in many, many cases when we use music. We're facilitating these moods. We're facilitating emotions. So Tolstoy says, art begins when one person with an object of joining another, let's just think of art as music. Music, when one person with an object of joining others, to himself, in one and the same feeling, expresses that feeling by certain external indications. Complicated. External indications are Dr. Pickens over here on the piano, or me singing something. Any kind of external manifestation, which is creating emotional exchange of some sort, emotional expression of love, of submission, raptures of lovers, courage, merriment, humor, quietness. All of that stuff can be expressed not only in art, paintings, and so on, but with music as well. So, without it, humans would be savage, is what Tolstoy says. Without art, we would be savage. Art is as basic as speech as he sees it, and he has a view that many basically accept today as well. It is one of the most indispensable means of communication without which mankind could not exist. Okay? Nietzsche has a famous statement, the philosopher Nietzsche in the 19th century. He says, without music, anybody know how it ends? Life would be a mistake. Without music, life would be a mistake. Now, I'm going to shift gears for just a second, because a lot of times what you see when people theorize about music is they say, oh, well, you've got this rational thinking over here, which is science, and then you've got this musical thinking, which is not rational. I think that's not a very good, well thought through position. In fact, when we use rationality in speaking, what are we doing? Let me think on a kind of an epistemological level about what we're doing. Where do those words exist? Got somehow these words in my memory, a repertoire of words, and I can draw on those words and I can construct a sentence, or I can form a sentence, or I can make a statement, right? So I'm trying to give you some examples of different words: form, structure, make, sentence, statement, utterance, and so on, right? So I'm drawing from this repertoire of ideas I have. These ideas are words, and I take those words as a second-order process, and I choose from them. I select which one I want for this particular purpose and which one I want for that purpose. Do I have that in here? No. Okay, good. How do we do that with music? What do you do if you're a musician or you're a singer? What are you doing that's similar to what I was just talking about? You've got these tempo ideas in the background. You've got this repertoire of notes. You've got all of these ideas. Okay? Is there thought without a word? Is a kind of primordial philosophical question. Is there a thought without a word? Am I thinking? I am. I'm thinking of a melody. I'm thinking of a tone. I'm thinking of a rhythm. I'm thinking of a structure. I can think of it on the piano. I can think of it on the guitar. I can think of it through a distortion thing. Ooh, let's go away from there. On a violin. So I can think about all these elements. So I want to maintain that music is rational. It's a rational process. You have to be rational, really, to make music like it. We don't think birds are choosing those things, although there might be a kind of rationality in some animals. It's not the same kind of thing, but we choose from this repertoire of notes, rhythms, times, and we do it to express ourselves, and we've always been doing it to express ourselves, and we need to do it to express ourselves. And without it, life is much poorer. So, I think I'll stop. That probably reached my 30-minute
Very interesting. That's the philosophy of music. And I'm a psychologist, so we tend to focus on what we were just talking about. How does it affect your mood? How do we actually use our minds to enjoy music and to produce music, right? Now, I think it's a miracle. Somehow, you play an instrument and the sound waves carry to your eardrums and vibrate your ear. And that's pretty amazing because your brain doesn't process vibrations, okay? Your brain only works on electrical signals. Your synapses, your neurons, they're sending little messages back and forth throughout your brain. So somehow the vibrations in the air have to become, can you find those? Vibrations in the air have to go to your eardrum, and then somehow your ear converts that into energy that your mind can appreciate, right? So right there is a pretty amazing thing. As amazing as vision is, you know, light comes into our eyes, but your brain doesn't process light waves, it processes little electrical signals. So somehow your eye, your retina, turns light into brain waves, and somehow your ears, your cochlea, turns sound vibrations in the air. You can't see it. Air is not space, right? We're not in outer space. This space around us is filled with molecules, nitrogen, oxygen, and those things vibrate, and they form waves, just like waves on water. Oh, I have to sign in again? All right, everybody pay attention to my password now so you can change your grades later this semester now. Just go into the grade book now. So anyway, it's pretty amazing. Sounds come into my ear and somehow my brain can process it. So let's make some sounds. I have here, let's see what we can do here. Here we go. Sorry. That was not the plan. So I'm going to play a sound. There we go. That's a tone. That's called a sine wave. And a circuit board inside this synthesizer, it's called a synthesizer because it really is doing that. It's synthesizing electronic waves. And then those go over here to a speaker, and the speaker's shaking and it's moving the air, and those vibrations are getting to your ear. Now here is a tone that is 440 vibrations per second. Middle A, if you had a tuning fork and you banged it and it wiggled, if it vibrated 440 times a second, you hear this note, this pitch. Now if you cut that exactly in half, from 440 to 220 cycles per second, we call them hertz. Now those are the same note. One is a little lower, one is a little higher, but we call all of those A. And we name all these pitches, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then we start over again every octave. So this one is 440, 220, 110 cycles a second. Oops. And you can go so low that you can hardly hear it.
That's how people like my guitar solos.
And as I go lower and lower, you can actually hear the vibrations, can't you? That's probably vibrating at a rate of maybe 20 times a second. And your brain somehow takes that and enjoys pitch. Now when notes have a mathematical relationship to each other, they sound nice, they sound harmonious. And some notes just sound nice together. They're all mathematically related, whole number mathematical, 440, 220, and maybe the one in between those. And I'm starting to form what we call chords, which is groups of notes played together. So, why is it though that some notes sound good together and some notes don't? And we don't really know the answer to this. It's something about human brains. And it's possibly cultural, because some cultures, when I listen to their music, it sounds off to me. It sounds weird. Notice how some notes sound nice together, but some notes just don't. Ugh, I don't know why. You don't have to be a musician to know that this doesn't sound good. And yet just a few notes different. So some notes sound nice together, and some notes sound a little off to our human ear. Now musicians use this. That's how you build tension in a song. Beethoven would take two notes that don't sound good together. I'm making a face, right? But he would go from the dissonant to the not so dissonant. So it's almost like, ouch, that bothers me, and then, it resolves into something nice and more melodic. What happened? Are these slides changing? Or are you just staring at the title slide here? There we go. That might, change these slides. Let's see. Is it showing up over here? All right. So my students made these slides. You'll see their names on some of these slides. And what we did this semester, we've been looking into the research on how does the scientific community starting to understand how music works. As as you said earlier today, Darrell, there are many elements to music, and some of these slides talk about some of those different components that musicians use to put together a song. Now, just as you said, we have a repertoire of words, but I can creatively put together sentences and meaning in language. I have a repertoire of sounds that I'm going to put together and show you a little bit about composition. Composition goes beyond rhythm and tempo and melody and harmony. Now you're starting to put different parts of a song together. And that's what I'm going to show you. How do producers nowadays, using modern electronic instruments, how do we make music? Now, one thing I wanted to tell you is that I've taught my students, you can change the timbre of a sound, right? The shape of a guitar produces different sound waves, and a trumpet, a violin sounds different than a piano. So here you hear a note that starts right away. As soon as I touch my finger to the key, the note plays. But I can change, let's say, the attack of that note so that it takes longer for the note to start or for it to trail off. And in doing that, that's how I just manipulate that sine wave a little bit. I'm now extending the sustain and the release, what we call the attack envelope, and look what happened. So we went from a sound that sounded like a tapping or a piano sound to more of a string sound, right? And there are many different kinds of sounds in these instruments. So I can draw from, I can make drum sounds. And really I'm just using filters. And I'm changing the intensity. I might be changing the pitch of the sound, and just by manipulating it within the circuitry of this instrument, I can create all these different instruments, even the human voice, or a sound of a trumpet, or the sound of a drum. So now we're going to move on to the idea of composition. Composition is where you take different sounds. You have to figure out what you're trying to say, right? I'm telling a story, And as the philosophy points out, we want to communicate something about emotion. We want to make you have a feeling and share a feeling together when we play music. So that's sort of the starting point, the emotion. But we also want to have a rhythm and a beat, you know, a nice rhythm that we like that sort of makes us tap our foot. We also want to play melodies and have those melodies that are so easy to remember, right? When you think of a song, you're probably thinking of the melody, the pattern of notes that go together and form sort of a sound that you recognize. It's the difference between sensing a few notes. That's just sensation, right? You are having a sensation. Your ears are vibrating and you're hearing some notes. That's not a melody. That's just sensing sound. You can hear. Congratulate. Did everybody hear that? I think Monsignor heard that upstairs, right? So you heard that. That's a sensation. But as soon as I go, what song was that? Happy birthday. Happy birthday to you too, by the way. Now, what's interesting about the human brain, that it can do stuff that no machine can do. If I play this song quickly, you still know it's happy birthday. If I play it slowly and lower in key, you still know it's happy birthday. And only the human mind can do that. Recognize a song in any key, at any tempo. Isn't that interesting how our minds can work? Almost like a tape recorder, that you could speed it up, you could slow it down. Like, let's say I asked you, what's the 12th word in the Star Spangled Banner? You can go through it pretty fast in your head, right? Oh, say, can you sing? Right? What is the 12th word in the Star Spangled? So you can run fast forward through a song. Very few, if you speed up a tape recorder, it sounds like chipmunks, right? It changes the pitch, but your brain doesn't do that. Now, how do I write music? And Dr. Arnold has several albums out. I have an album out on CD Baby. It's called Cine Music. And if you want a good grade, you should all buy it today. So I'm going to show you how I approach music composition. Sometimes I start a song by thinking of like a bass line. So I started this song just with this little bass line. Now maybe I could ask one of you to come up, and maybe you'd write a beat to this, right? That wasn't a very good one, right? Now you guys can download apps where you can audition hundreds of different musical parts and just mix and match and put them together without even being a musician. I could try one beat. That didn't work. Maybe I'll try a different one. That didn't work. A couple of you are tapping your foot. I'm trying to see, you know, how do we find the right beat? And then eventually, now you're going, oh yeah, wait a minute, oh yeah, you got it, right? So now what do? I'm going to add some piano, right? I'm recording each part as I is something else that we do now with synthesizers. I can take a brass sound, the sound of horns playing, and I can bend it, right? Because that's what it sounds like when horn players move their trumpets away from the microphone. And so now I'm going to try to do it in a musical way. Together different timbres, different sounds. I'm doing a rhythm as well as a drum, and then I put a melody, and then I put some horns or some lead sounds over it, and pretty soon you've got a whole song, right? So I'm recording as we speak. I'm recording, and you're seeing how sometimes songs are put together just like this. So let's go on to a little different situation. I had a song that I wrote on not too long ago, and this one kind of started out with a sound effect, believe it or not. I sort of was trying to use the synthesizer to simulate, kind of the sound of water running. Here was the sample. And I just recorded that into my sequencer, it's called. So this song really started with this sound effect. And then I wanted to add some piano chords to it, so I came up with I thought that sounded kind of nice with this sound in the background. Bass line, because it doesn't have enough of a beat for me, you know? So maybe I go, and I'm not that good at bass. But you only need a few notes to play bass. And now the most important part is I have to come up with a drum beat. But it all started with just the sound of kind of water flowing. I added piano chords. Then I added a bass line and a drum. Any of you can do this. The point is as accomplished a musician as you used to have to be. Because you can audition different sounds and put them together like a collage, like painting by numbers. The reason I would encourage you to do that is that all the slides you're seeing, many of them talk about the benefits of music, not just listening to music, which can be helpful for studying and athletic performance, relaxing, achieving a spiritual state of mind, getting pumped up and motivated for the big game, or getting chilled out and relaxing so that you can take it easy and enjoy. But there is a lot of technology that allows you to do this now, and by making music, it's sort of like learning a language. You're using many different parts of your mind, many different parts of your brain. Motor, you're moving, you're listening, you're having ideas, and you're being creative. And all the evidence now shows that that makes you smarter. That's right. If you come into college, you're here to get smarter. Today, I'm giving you a hint. Learn how to make some music. Make some music with some friends. It's a really great way to stimulate your brain. How do we know this? We've been playing music for dementia patients with Alzheimer's disease, and the music brings them out of their shell, brings them out of their kind of withdrawn mood, and makes them more alert, and stimulates their memories. Because when we play old music from a long time ago, what happens when you hear that old song? It touches your memories, doesn't it? It helps you remember different things. And likewise, playing music for just about anybody, even they say for babies, can be very effective for sort of increasing their intelligence. So I'll play a little more for you. Would you like that?
Yep.
Maybe one more? Let's really bother Monsignor. This song I wrote, it started with a piano part. Here, I'll play that for you. Now all I have to do is add some bass and drums. Like that? Here and write a song. Come on, Tati, come here. Give it up for Tatiana. She's very great. Play some sounds here on the keyboard. See what you got. Just touch some. That's a good one. How about try to do a beat. Bass. And now use this finger for the snare. Rhythm to it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Boom, 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 boom. Yeah, give it up for Touchy. He's got it going on. Right, so this one was written, it's named for a cat that I used to have named Basha. And Basha was a very cool cat. And so I wrote a funky song using a bass line. Two notes. That's how complicated my songs are. So here it is, the bass line. Who wants to write a drum track with me? You want to come up? Kosh, you want to come write the drums? Come on, Paul, you want to write it? Got it? Let's have some horns, right? All right, y'all. Go get funky. Go have a great day. Let's make some music with you guys. So we'll take some questions here. What do you have for us? What are you curious about when it comes to music, music therapy, how to make music, and you know, learning a little bit about this. I'm pretty much self-taught. I taught myself, and like I say, you don't have to be a trained musician anymore to make sounds. You can get loops and put them together by an app called GarageBand or Fruity Loops, and all of those let you just take pre-existing rhythms and melodies and tempos and throw them together and experiment with them. That in itself is going to make your brain work in a special way that nothing else but music can do. Who has any questions for us today? How to become a
Michael, do
music
you want to add
therapist?
anything from the point of view of history?
A
couple
couple
sentences?
quick question.
No.
Why did she move to East Atlanta when her heart is in Havana?
Sometimes you got to do that, you know.
So, do you think, could you guys talk maybe about the music scene? I know you're both involved in the music scene here in Miami, in South Florida. Would you talk about that just a little bit? Because maybe its contours or what you know of it and anything along those lines. Because I know you're both very active in the music scene.
Yeah, you should know that Miami has a wonderful history in the music scene, especially in modern music, hip-hop music. And a guy named Luther Campbell, and there were some really big, important records made in the hip-hop area. Downtown Miami has a whole little zone where you can find these record stores that have the old records and the beginnings of hip-hop that actually happened here. They say a lot of bands like the Beatles used to actually come down here to Miami to hear some of these local artists who were starting a new kind of music called rap. And so a lot of cool stuff happened right here in Miami. We also have the New World Orchestra, and you can go watch them rehearse. They give free performances, what we call wall casts, down on Miami Beach. Of course, it's a tourist town, so there are hundreds of places where live music and concerts are available in every genre, from Latin and South American and Cuban music to rock and jazz and classical. So I think it's a good music scene. I'd say making money as a musician is very challenging. It's not an easy life. You work at night in smoky bars. Not everybody becomes Jay-Z, right? Not everybody is a producer overnight, but what I've noticed about the musicians I know is that they don't feel like they have a choice. They feel like they have to make music. They are creative personalities, and so that's what they need to do for their life. But it's also very enjoyable as a hobby. And me personally, I had a choice between working nights in smoky cigarette-filled casinos for about $200 or going back to school and getting an advanced degree and working in the daytime and enjoying music anyway as a hobby. And we collaborate. I know that Darrell can tell you a little bit about like the Luna Star Cafe and the folk scene. Don't you work with all sorts of other musicians?
Yeah, I guess I would say though first, I mean, Miami is also so important for world music. There are so many Grammy-winning producers and engineers and so on producing this genre of music. You just look at the Grammy Awards year after year, you see from all around the world people being produced here for that kind of thing. That's not anything like what I do. I'm a Midwesterner, and I play in a cafe here really regularly, once or twice a month in some different groups. And there you have a lot of people who played in a kind of folk or folk rock scene in New York, who have relocated down here, who play regularly, and then touring artists who come through into a rather small little place. But it's one of the unique venues for the kind of folk rock, or I don't know, even some traditional folk sometimes, that is played in this area. And I have found part of it is a community. You find I found making music with people has created the possibility for me wherever I've moved actually to find a group of people and to develop this community and camaraderie and develop many of my best friends out of the musicians who I've met in various places where I've moved. So
yeah, it's something you can enjoy and make part of your life. Many of our faculty have other talents, and we hope today's lecture gave you a chance to see another side of your professors and to also maybe get some ideas of your own about music and how I can enjoy it. Do you use it to study? Do you use it to get motivated to run and to exercise? Can it put you in a spiritual mood? And as many of my students know, we can use music therapy as one of the tools in psychology. And it's working with children, working with the elderly, working with people who are nervous and people who need a little music in their life can make a huge difference, and you can get paid for. You don't have to play music. You can bring a CD player or something like that in and play music for groups of people who it really is rehabilitative and therapeutic. So I think there are so many ways that music is part of our lives. It's just great to study it and think about it. In fact, some of these slides that my students have come up with show that scientists make whole careers out of studying the effects of music on human behavior. Maybe some of you will figure out whether that mockingbird is really, writing out her composition the night before. So it's been great. Any other questions for us this afternoon? All right, you all. Well, thanks for coming, and thanks to Jonathan and the library for having us. Thank you, everybody.
By the way, we have ordered a lot of new books on music history, on